So we got everybody with a calculator up and ready to go, and I'm going to give you an L1 and an L2, which I'm going to, instead of just saying that, I'm going to say X and Y, because that's what they are. They're X's and Y's, and they go into L1 and L2. And here's 2, 4, and 6 going with 20, 41, and 59. Now those are really close to perfect. 20, 40, and 60 would have been perfect correlation. This won't be perfect correlation, but it'll be strong correlation. So the R tells you your correlation. And if the R comes out to like 0.9 or bigger, that's like super strong correlation. 1.0 would be perfect. It won't be 1.0. Then you'll get this equation. Remember how you're supposed to use lin-reg, as in linear regression, and you're supposed to use the kind that has ax plus b. There is 3 kinds of linear regression. Choose the one that says ax plus b. I taught you this yesterday. If you were gone yesterday, you need me to give you a one-on-one lesson here. So I'm going to pause for a second and help if you're getting stuck. I'm going to ask everybody to show me what the R value in the linear regression equation is. Pausing while I walk around. Okay, so Rena, would you read me what the, no, not the R value, I already got that. It was 0.99999 because it was so close to perfect correlation. But if I write y equals, and I want the number for A, and then x plus, and then I want the number for B. Can you tell me what goes here for A and here for B?
A is 9.75 and B is 1.
9.75 and B is 1. Now, this is the last melon. All I have to teach you here, compared to yesterday, is how to use this to make predictions, right? So, if I told you that this was about a person's, I don't know, what would be, let's say this is their hair length, and I told you this was the price for a haircut. In the real world, they don't charge you way more for having longer hair, but they could. So imagine that this was your hair length, and this is how your price would be for getting a haircut. Then you could use this to predict, well, I knew this one kid who had 16-inch long hair, and it could predict the cost. See what I mean? You could put the number in for any X you want. Like 2, 4, 6. Well, I already know 6 was 59, but what would 16 be? Well, then you'd have to put it in this equation. This will require you to use your brain and the calculator and a blank calculator screen. So just clear off what you got. Hit clear, get the screen all cleared out, and then look up here and figure out what y has to be. 9.75x, where x is 16, plus 1. Use your calculator, get the answer. Now there's a fancy way to do this where you put this and you store it in your calculator, and then you can use your calculator to do it, but I feel like it's not worth trying to teach you because it's so much more complicated. Because anybody can type in 9.75 times 16 plus 1. Do it. And put it up on your screen and then compare it with the kid next to you. See if you and them get the same answer. And if you didn't, talk it over. Wait, you guys are going to compare across like this. So you guys are going to compare diagonally. You guys straight across. Or you compare with Cooper. You compare with Brian. You guys compare. All right. All right. If you had Siri, you'd just go, what is 16 times 9.75 plus 1?
16 times 9.75 plus 1 is 157.
Raise your hand if you had 157. Okay, cool. What was that again? That was if you had 16-inch long hair if that was the equation for it, you would have had to pay $167. All right. One that I do in my class sometimes that's kind of fun is I actually measure people's hands, and then we compare that to their height, and we have one that's the size of your hand and one that is your height. But I don't have my ruler taped here anymore to actually get some actual heights, but I'm just going to make up some numbers that would seem kind of reasonable. And measuring your hand could be done in a lot of different ways. You could measure the length of your hand. You could measure the hand this way, the sideways. I'm just going to give you some numbers that would be based on, like, me. So for my hand, I'm going to measure it this way. I'm going to say it's about 5-inch palm. Okay. And then my height is about 5'10", which is 5 times 12 inches is 50, 60 plus 10 is 70. This is in inches. If my hand is 5 and my height is 70, can you imagine some basketball player that like plays in the NBA might have significantly bigger hands than me? And would also be significantly taller than me, right? All right, so then I'm going to say that his hands, let's say, are 7, and his height is 85 inches. Then there's somebody in between whose hand was 6, and wouldn't you expect their hand to be then between, 70 and 85? More than 70? Maybe I should write them this way. I'm going to just squeeze it in here. I'm going to squeeze in that 6-inch hand would be between 75 and 80. So maybe it's at like 78. So there's a real world example of how big my hand is, how tall I am, and other people's hands and heights. And my question is, can you put that in your calculator, find the linear regression for it, and tell me, was there a strong correlation between hand size and height? And the next is, what's the equation? And last is, predict for an 8-inch hand. That might be like tallest person in the world. All right, I'm going to pause for a second while you can see if you can answer this one. All right, Christian, what was the correlation like number? 0.99? Is that strong correlation? Yes, it is. So that means my data was good. That means that there is a correlation between hand size and height, and that makes sense that there would be. Can you imagine somebody who had teeny tiny hands and was super tall? It just would look goofy, and there is differences in people's, for the people that are the same exact height, they can have different hand sizes, but there's never going to be a person who's gigantically tall that has teeny tiny hands. It just doesn't make sense. All right, so what's the equation, Riker? Y equals 7.5 for the A, and then there's an X, and then
plus 32.67.
Awesome. That's the equation you can use to predict. Now, the only thing that's left is, do you know where to put the 8? So, do you know where to put the 8? Well, there's only 2 choices, but look over here. Where does the 8 seem like it would fit logically? Under this column, right? So that's the X. So you put the 8 here. All right. Use your calculator. Get that final answer. What is 7.5 times 8? And that's 60. what is 60 plus 32.67? 92.67. Very, very tall. Who had 92.67? All right. Do you get what happened there? I don't feel like it's that hard. The only hard part is like making a prediction at the end. Okay, so how could we make it just a little harder? If they didn't tell you the hand, but they told you their height. So imagine a world where they found a body, but the hands were cut off. Ew. It's awful, but it does happen. So then they've got this body and they know that the person was, let's say, 52 inches tall. If I have 52 inches, it's not the hand height, right? So put it in the other spot, which is right here. And then you have an equation. Do I have to tell you how to solve the equation? I hope not. It's just an equation. Don't overthink this. Solve that equation. If you can't solve equations, you're in algebra 2, for Pete's sakes. So Dasha, what's the first step?
You gotta divide by 7.5.
No.
Or,
And remember, on solving equations, your first thing you'll always do is add or subtract.
oh yeah, you gotta subtract 32.
Okay, we're going to subtract and be more specific.
32.6 on both sides.
Do that. You always start with adding or subtracting, and then you go to multiply and divide, and then the last thing you do is powers, or exponents, or parentheses. You know why I'm doing in that order? Some of you may have missed the memo on this, but when you're solving equations, you're always going backwards PEMDAS. You add and subtract things first, then you multiply or divide things, and then you get rid of your exponents or your parentheses. Okay, so then, what is 52 minus 32.67? 19.33 equals 7.5x. Christian, how do I do the last step?
You divide by 7.
Correct. What is 19.33 divided by 7.5? 2.577, and it keeps going, so I'm going to go with 2.58. What was that? That's how big this person's hand should be. About 3 inches. Well, I'm rounding a lot. I should probably left it as 2.6 inches or so. All right. Does that make sense to you? Is there any part of that you want to, like, I don't get how you got this. Yes?
Well then, how do you adjust it, like, if it said like for the next term, right, like 8, so then how would you like do it for like 9 or 10?
Well, if you wanted 9 inch, are we talking how big the hands are?
Yeah.
So if you wanted 9, you'd put a 9 here. If you wanted 10, you'd put a 10 here. So you just have to use that equation and keep sticking in the numbers that you want. Okay, so there's only 2 places you could put them. Here, which is where the hands go, and here, which is where the heights go. All right. So I think it's time to get started on the Schoology quiz for today, because that's it. There's nothing really new here today. It's more just like how to use that equation to solve. So we got ahead yesterday. Now we're still ahead of a lot of the other classes, so yay. We have an extra day on this. We can take 2 days on regression. So opening up that Schoology quiz to problem 1. Blaine, would you read me number 1?
Yep. Number 1 is use technology to find the least squares regression line in the form y equal ax plus b for the mass on the string. Round a and b to 2 decimal places.
All right, so they must have given me a bunch of data, right? Did they give you a bunch of like numbers to put in?
They did.
Can you give me the L1, aka the X numbers?
Yep. 0, 50, 100, 150, 200, and 250.
Let me make sure I heard that right. 0, 50, 100, 150, 200, 250.
Yep.
Cool. I'll get you off the hot seat. Thanks for your help. Let's go to Graham. Can you read me the Y values I'm supposed to put in?
Yeah, 17.7, and then 20.4, and then 22, 25, 26, and 27.8.
All right. So I put all of those into my calculator under the list 1 and list 2. This one's L1, this one's L2. Now, I'm guessing they want the regression equation. Do they have you pick it from a multiple choice, or do they have you type it in? Just type it in? Do they tell you Y equals, or do I have to type Y equals? Do you think you should type it? It's an easy question. Is there a Y equals on the screen for you? Okay, then you should start with Y equals. And it does tell you to round it. Let's talk about that. If you haven't already entered these, you're going to have to enter these on the calculator. Then your calculator is going to come up with the numbers for AX plus B. So you just have to figure out the A number goes here and the B number goes there. And they'll tell you that, but you have to round them to the right place. Who is confident they've already typed in their numbers and they think they've got this thing? It's usually somebody who finishes up really quick. Okay, nobody yet. I'm going to give you a little time. Type in all those numbers. Yeah, got it? Spencer, what'd you get for A? We'll wait till we verify it with somebody else, but read it to me.
0.04.
And keep going just so I know how to round it. Just give me the raw number. 04, blah, blah, blah.
0.0401414286.
Good enough. There we go. Thank you. And now, Christian, read me what it says about rounding. Specifically, what does it say about rounding?
Round to
2 decimal places. All right. And those are the 2 decimal places we care about. I always draw a line like that, and then I just decide, is the next number here big enough to make me think I should round up? And it doesn't look big enough. Yes, Vivian. Or sorry, Victoria.
One of the directions says around a 2, and the other one says 3.
Ooh, that's not good. Read exactly what it says, because maybe it's saying to round the
Oh wait, yeah, that's for that
one thing this way and the other thing that way.
Yeah, that's what it's saying.
Then read it to me so I know what is the catch.
Round A and B to 2, and then R to 3.
Aha. So you use 2 decimal places for these 2 numbers here. And then your final answer for your R value goes to 3 decimal places. All right. Well, I think we've gotten started. Question?
First, should we use Y equals?
I will double check that the Schoology quiz actually has you type in Y equals. I think it would, but let me check. So I will tell you how to start your answer. Y equals 0.04x. Some of you have a bad habit of always putting a 0 in front of the decimal point. Most mathematicians don't use a 0 in front of the decimal point. So your quiz, Schoology quiz, does not expect you to put a 0 in front of it. Sometimes they put it in there just in case, but you don't need a 0 in front of the decimal. 0.04x plus, and then hopefully you know B, it's like 18 point something. Go to 2 decimal places, 2 spots after the decimal. Yes?
Do you use units?
Nope. So that's how you start your answer, and then they want the R value to like 3 decimal places. This is not the right answer, but something like that. 3 decimal places for the R value, except not that answer. All right. You're going. I feel like you can see how this could be used in the real world. It's good, real world data crunching that, honestly is used all the time. it's kind of gruesome, but down in Florida especially, they find body parts in the canals because sadly people will die and get eaten by alligators, and all of a sudden all you got left is like a femur. And they're like, oh my gosh, all we have is a femur. But they can look it up on a chart and use regression equations like this, and they can go, okay, from this femur, I can tell the person was this tall. And now all of a sudden you narrowed it down to like only 6'4" people that were lost in this area, like, you know, missing persons that were 6'4". And for somebody who's like, oh, is that my, you know, my child who ran away? No, they were 6'4". It wasn't your kid. You can know for sure it wasn't your kid from just one bone, because you can look it up on a chart just like this, where you have like the bone size and then the height of the person, and you can, yeah, this gets used in the real world. All right, so that's all I have for you for the video for today. Tomorrow's review, test on Friday, Schoology quiz during the rest of the hour. If you have questions, please walk them up and let me help you. And that's all I got for you.